You're listening to Last Word Radio, where you get the last word.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. This is January the 28th, 2019. With you today is myself, Carl, the always inspirational Nick.
Hey, you got it this time.
I remembered.
You remembered. If only I remembered what the line is.
Your inspirational line?
Yeah.
It's not about who knocks you down, it's about who picks you back up.
Oh, wow. That was fast, Carl.
I remember. Yeah.
Wow, good job.
Yeah, it's.
I imagine it's your computer background over mountain scenery.
I actually almost used it in a paper that I handed in this week. So they were like, "You need to use an additional source," and I was like, "You know who has some very good content for me to use? Nick." So,
sure, I'll ghostwrite your essays for you.
Thank you very much. As you may notice, the always wonderful Joel could not be with us this week, but I assume he'll be back next week. There's no reason to believe he will not. We are here to carry on without him. We will be talking about the All Star game. Edmonton Oilers fired their general manager, so we'll touch on that a little bit. We have a game coming up where I am going to take on a listener in a contest that Nick has come up with, and I do not have any clue how well I'm going to do on it. We'll put another team in the elimination station. Pick our Pavel Braves. We have a lot going on today. Before we get into that, the Alberta Podcast Network is powered by ATB, which is our favorite bank here at the Fourth Line Podcast, and one that you should check out. If you go to atb.com/listens, you'll be able to find out all the ways that ATB is supporting people in and around Alberta with their banking needs and what they can do. And they want to find out what your needs are. So head over there, let them know, and find a way that you guys can work together. So they support a lot of community initiatives. They support the podcast. They support hockey. ATB is a fantastic place to be. A place that is a less fantastic place to be right now is Edmonton front office. Peter Chiarelli, after last week, we talked last week about some of his moves. We talked about the Koskinen move. Apparently, that was the final straw for him. They're like, you know what, Peter? And it depends who you listen to, right? It depends. If you're Team Drager, you think one thing. If you're Team Athletic, you think another thing. Whether he did or didn't get to make that move independently. But Koskinen was his last move. Peter Chiarelli gone from Edmonton.
One thing is for sure, though, is that they couldn't even wait a whole game after that signing was complete to fire him.
Yeah, during the second intermission.
Intermission.
They're down to the Red Wings and they're like, you know what, this is embarrassing. We listened to the Fourth Line last week and they made it into the elimination station and we can't even beat them? Come on.
Yeah.
What a joke. Peter, you're gone.
Gone, Peter. Imagine getting that call into the owner's box after the second period.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to come up here? Let's watch it from here.
Yeah, it's around the time the pizza shows up. I'll join you for a slice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe a drink or two. Head back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind, Peter. We're gonna tell you now so that you can leave before everyone else knows.
More like a slice of sadness.
There's the episode name right there. The slice of sadness.
I mean, like, it was bound to happen. At this point, it was just a matter of how long are they going to let this continue for. And obviously, they didn't want it to continue into trade deadline season.
Yeah, signing a goaltender, allowable. Trading unwanted pieces, not okay.
Yeah.
And like you said, the writing was on the wall. It was bound to happen eventually. And there's no point waiting, right? If you don't trust him to be the guy to rebuild this mess that you've made, and it's not even that bad, right? As Connor McDavid pointed out at the All Star game this weekend when he fielded many questions, I think he did a pretty good job on taking those questions and being the guy up front from the Oilers player side. But as he said, they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot right now. So you right this ship, you're able to, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
No, not at all. No, not at all. And I mean, I don't know. I don't think the Oilers' problems started and stopped with Peter Chiarelli. I like the whole last couple years and the way this has rolled out. Kind of, it just feels like their whole front office is chaotic. Like no one really has a handle or any sort of direction on where this team's going.
Well, and that's so in replacing him, they announced an interim general manager, Keith Gretzky, really fixing their problems of rehashing favorite players and family of favorite players from the 80s. So they've really stretched out on this part, naming him as the interim. Bob Nicholson, obviously not a big piece from those days, but a big part of many successful Team Canada franchises and teams from the Olympics. But it's a lot easier to build a Team Canada roster than it is a successful NHL roster.
Yeah, no kidding. It is crazy to me, though, that they're going to bring in an interim general manager to guide them through trade deadline period, a period this year that, especially this year for them, is going to be important because Nicholson said in that press conference they need to make the playoffs this year. They're not going to sell the farm, but they need to make the playoffs, which tells me that more changes are coming. Whether they're just tweaks or something bigger, I don't know. But it's funny to me that they would bring in someone on the interim to make some of these bigger decisions that could, change the next couple of years for the organization.
Absolutely. If you're willing to move out some pieces, right? And, they didn't really hint at what those were, and they said they wouldn't be selling some prospects, things like that. So but if you're wanting to move and the thought of moving a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi is on the table, that's a big piece, right? Because he's a guy that, sure, we've seen a fair amount of him and he hasn't looked the greatest and they haven't handled him the best, but being able to keep him in the organization would be good. You've got other guys. Tyler Yamamoto, is one that names come around. As another piece that could move. So if you're moving these prospects for known quantities, that's not something you want to mess up.
Yeah, 100%. And I think if I'm a player on the Oilers right now, I don't know if it's nervous or hopeful, but I mean, there's probably a good chance I'm going to be moved. And I think that's in the back of my head.
Yeah. Well, and if you have that in the back of your head, you either think, I'm part of the solution going forward. And I think you want to try to sell yourself. Is that right? But
yeah,
not everyone's going to last there in Edmonton. So we'll see. Obviously, as trades start to pick up after this All Star break, and when teams come back from their buys, we'll start to see some movement here. So, what do you think into the future for them, general manager wise? They talked a lot about needing to fix the culture, which I found interesting. That McDavid was like, "No, we don't have a culture problem in that room. Our room's fine." So it's interesting that they think that they have that issue. Maybe they should talk to the guys in the room and find out if the culture is actually bad. But that's something that they touched on as a need to improve with the general manager direction, obviously naming just the interim. Where do you think they go? What kind of general manager do you see them bringing in?
I really don't know. I mean, if past behavior is an indicator of future behavior, then I would think that they'll bring in more of a yes man who, puts a committee of this front office together and they go through every decision together and he kind of does what the group decides. I think the right thing for them to do would be to bring in someone and give him the keys to the team and say, tell us what your vision is and go and execute it. We'll stay out of your way. I don't know if that organization group has the guts to do that.
The only thing that gives me, if I was an Oilers fan, hope for the future is the bringing in of Ken Hitchcock, right? That's kind of a move away from the direction we've seen them take before of the insiders, of rehashing people. To me, I look at that and I'm like, okay, maybe they'd be interested in bringing in another veteran, experienced person who's not part of this organization from the past, that's new. And whether that means that, they try to include Hitch in that and try to keep him within the organization and give him some sort of personnel role and then bring in some other people around him. I do think that they've shown that they're willing to bring in new people, and I think I would be hopeful that that's what they're doing with the general manager role too.
I would hope so. But I mean, Hitchcock's another thing that I always wonder, like, how much is this guy going to take? He's already retired twice, and he comes back out of retirement. This is the hand he's dealt, is dealing with kind of this. And I know he deals more on the player side, but I don't know. I think that's the direction they need to go in. But who knows?
Yeah, we will see as the summer plays out. It seems likely that they'll wait until probably as the season ends, see who gets let go, because there's definitely some guys that could, and maybe they'll be able to pick up someone that another team's decided isn't the right person for them. So
I think the general manager circuit is going to be very interesting the next couple of years, especially with Seattle entering the league too.
Right, and we've seen Seattle's already, Dave Tippett is in Seattle already, working with that organization, so for sure, as you have, Steve Yzerman, he's still on the market. So, there's lots of talk about him replacing Ken Holland in Detroit, but Ken Holland hasn't left yet either. So,
no. And then there's a few AGMs too around the league, like in Nashville and Vegas, I think, that are kind of right on the cusp. And it'll be interesting. And
with McCrimmon is the guy in Vegas you're talking about. Lots of talk about him because coming from the WHL. He's a guy with Western Canadian roots, so for sure that could be a interesting move for the Oilers. All Star game, that was a thing that dozens of people tuned into. What was your All Star weekend experience, Nick?
My All Star weekend experience, Well, Friday night I watched the Oscar-nominated movie Roma on Netflix.
Was it good?
It wasn't. I didn't really enjoy it that much. And then Saturday, I was at a friend's house playing board games. So all in all, it was a pretty good all-star weekend for me, but did not include any hockey.
Friday night, while you were watching Roma, I was busy watching Venom and eating sushi, which is a good way to spend the skills competition. And Saturday, I actually sat down and watched the All-Star game.
And? How was it?
It was, for someone who enjoys the All-Star game, and I love the format, I have discovered some flaws. It was disappointing.
I heard the Penguins won.
The Penguins did win, yeah. I was trying to explain to my wife, I'm watching the game, and I'm like, oh, my team's playing. She's like, who is your team? Like, my one. Like, it's the All-Star game. How do you have a team? And trying to explain that, like, oh, well, the Central Division, where the Avalanche play, they've got like 2/3 of the best line, and McKinnon's coaching for some reason, and so that's my team. And then I was disappointed they lost, but Crosby put on a good show. He was deserving of the MVP. But it was I have come up with a new idea for the NHL.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because here's the flaw that the 3-on-3 has. So 3-on-3 in overtime is great because it's first team to score wins. However, something that's not super great is like 3-on-3 when you've got a big lead. So we saw in that first game, right, as you didn't see and as many also didn't see, the Central Division got up real big on the Pacific. And then it just became a boring second period. That second 10-minute chunk was kind of just like skating up and down, kind of just going through the pace for those second 10 minutes.
Do they reset the play after every goal? A new face-off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not full like schoolyard rules.
Right.
It's not which it should be, right? They don't really blow the puck dead if the goalie has it. That he's encouraged to play it.
Yeah.
I think I saw 2 offsides called and one penalty shot handed out for dragging someone down. I forget who that was, but there was one penalty called in the game.
Right.
However, so it becomes pretty slow in the second half. So kind of what I have thought of, and if you're the host team, so the Pacific hosted, right? San Jose, it's there. You've got Carlson, you got Pavelski, you got Brent Burns. You've got 3 guys from your team on this roster, and they only got to play one game, right? They got to play one 20-minute game. So here's my idea, NHL. You're ready. You're welcome. You still do the Central Division. You can still, or like the divisions, you can still do the 3-on-3. However, I'm suggesting you cut down the intermission times, right? No one's there to watch a terrible concert in the intermission.
They do a full intermission?
They did a full intermission between each 20-minute game, yeah.
Okay.
So give everyone enough time to go refresh their beverages, get some snacks, just run the Zamboni up and down the ice. That takes 10 minutes, right? That's the average amount of time you've allotted. Do 10-minute intermissions and do kind of a round robin of sorts. So that way, if you're hosting it, you get to see your team a bunch, and then you do it afterwards. So you'll do, maybe each team plays 2 games in a round robin, and then 1v4, 2v3, 10 minutes at a time though. We don't need 20-minute games, because if it gets out of hand, it's boring. I'm not tuning in for that. So if we're seeing, let's just chunk out, it's the All Star game. You can have some fun. People can be there a little longer. You can change the format. A bunch of 10-minute games. They might get, it would be probably 9 games, 10 games total. That sounds like a great night. You watch a bunch of mini games. You see it. You see more of the players you're there to see. That way the Pacific and the Atlantic aren't gone right away, right? San Jose wants to boo John Tavares some more. That's fine. Just let him.
I still don't understand why they booed him, but that's another conversation.
I mean, apparently they were quite invested in him going there in the summer. They were sold. John's coming.
But do they realize they probably wouldn't have gotten Erik Karlsson if Tavares went, or do they think they could have had both?
I don't think they thought that far ahead, no.
Anyways, that's another conversation for another week. So you're proposing tournament style.
I'm proposing a tournament style, yeah.
Round robin and then elimination.
Yes.
Okay, so the players would be playing the exact same amount of time, just in smaller snippets.
They might play, I guess if you were to be the team that plays 2, and you're playing 40 minutes, you'd probably play the same. It's the losing teams that get to play a little bit more. It's to get you're there to see all the players, right? Especially as the home team, you're there to see your guys. And if you open the night with the Pacific, which is smart, right? And then they're done, like, oh, my guys aren't there, right? The home team players aren't there. If you can keep them around a little longer, that just gives the fans, who are the reason you do it more for the local fans. You give them what they want.
Now here's how you can really sell in your idea, Carl. You can sell off the sponsorship rights to the round robin to whoever, and then sell off the sponsorship rights to the elimination round, and the NHL's in.
That's a great idea. Uncle Gary seems like you listen. Tune in, Uncle.
Absolutely.
So I like that. Sponsorship makes more money, some more TV time. No one's going to say no. No one's tuning in for whatever BB Rexa, I believe, is who performed. Is that an...
Don't even know who... I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it was a terrible performance, and I regretted watching it.
The problem is, nothing sounds good in an arena, when it's actually set up for a concert.
Well, that's the thing, right? I was like, it's like they didn't sound check before they actually did it. It's like they did the sound check in a room underneath the stadium, and then they just shoved them out there. And it was like, here we go.
Yeah, that sounds about right for the NHL.
Yeah, right? They literally brought her in probably during the second game, and they were like, hey, you're on.
Good luck.
Yeah. Go kill it. Even the look on her face was like, this is going terribly. But that's the NHL All Star game for you. There were some cool things that happened as part of the weekend, though. One of them was the inclusion of some players from the CWHL, the NWHL. I saw Brianna Decker participated and did the sample for that. And Nathan McKinnon had a fill-in for him from the league as part of the fastest skater competition. And that was a lot of fun.
I love that. I think that's super cool. And it's great exposure to the women's game, and it allows people to see how great of athletes they are in those professional leagues.
Absolutely, yeah. I think so. They had an interview with Gary Bettman, and they talked substantially about this. And I think part of their hesitation in going more with this is the fact that there are 2 competing leagues, right? The CWHL and the NWHL, and he had the thought that he said they didn't want to show favoritism to one league over the other. And if it was one unified league, then maybe the NHL could do something like that. So I guess that's one part, right? Is these leagues unifying, which to me seems like an inevitability that there will be some sort of partnership. We saw that anytime you see 2 competing leagues, one usually absorbs the other one.
Yeah, 100%. I'm kind of curious to see what happens after the next Winter Olympics in China, if the Chinese team and the CWHL sticks around. And if they don't, I think it makes it even harder for the CWHL to operate as its own league.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
So I don't know. I think it's definitely something we'll see in the future, a unified women's league.
And then, I think what that leads to is if they could have some sort of, because the NWA and the NBA work very closely together, and if we can have an actual NWHL being partnered with the NHL, I think that gives us a lot of opportunities to see that expand and grow and partner with the NHL, having women's league players from the women's league at the NHL All Star weekend, part of the awards at the end of the year, kind of all of this. We've seen it, I know the Devils have big partnerships with teams out there, so kind of continue that. Buffalo as well.
Are the basketball leagues not officially affiliated with each other, though?
I was under the impression that they are.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I think that's a great situation because then the men's league can funnel some money into the women's league too and help promote it and make it kind of a bigger production for the girls. I think that's, start getting your athletes paid too.
Exactly, right? Yeah, there's no reason that there is the fact that, with pay decker being a big thing. I know that the NHL tried to save some face. We're like, well, she didn't actually put up the greatest time. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
They should be paid as part of this. It shouldn't just be a demonstration to have this. They should be paid because the salaries that they're getting in these leagues are not sufficient for that to be their only gigs.
No, they're not.
And if you start to gain that exposure through partnering, there will be more revenue generated through them. There will be less overhead if you're including different leagues as part of it. And I think that's a win for everyone. I know, Nick, you and does your wife play or did she play?
No, my wife does not play hockey now.
But I'm big fan of hockey.
Yes.
I know my wife plays hockey herself.
Yeah.
And chatting with her this week and really getting her opinion, because that's more important in this whole thing than mine. Like, what are your thoughts, and how should hockey media play this? And kind of the impression is that it should be pushed better, it should be promoted better, and that's how you start to get more people interested and included in it. You should, find ways to check out some of your local teams, because Brianna Decker, she's playing in Calgary with the CWHL team here. Kendall Coyne has tons of places where she's playing, and obviously playing with the U.S. national team. These are things that we should be doing, we should be including, and so finding ways to include that in sports media would be a great thing. Even if they're always broadcast, right? You have NHL TV, you have Game Center, you can watch those games, and that's the thing that a lot of players, and we saw that, right? A lot of people were watching it, and people with girls who like hockey at home, even boys who like hockey at home, seeing these fantastic athletes out there, that's a win.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's still hard to do with the two separate leagues. Like if we could if they would merge, then suddenly you can do things like combine the All-Star games so that the Women's League All-Star game also gets the coverage that the men's do, and they do it on the same weekend in the same city, same arena. They can combine their outdoor games and again, share all that coverage. I think once we get a unified league, it makes it easier for the NHL to kind of bring them in and do more of these partnerships together, which then makes it easier for sports media to cover that side of the game as well.
Well, and that kind of was the sense that Gary Bettman showed this weekend as well, right? Was that, they're in a tough situation because they want to, but they have these two leagues. So we will pay attention and see what happens as these leagues continue to go. The other cool thing that happened is they started to roll out their new high-tech hockey stats data gathering. So they put a sensor in the puck. Each player had a sensor in their shoulder pads. And these were gathering all kinds of data, and they started to roll it out through the broadcast and seeing what it was. And I don't know how much of what they were doing you saw, Nick, but some of what they did is they would continually show player speed during the play, so live player speed, which I think is cool for like a time to be like, oh yeah, that's how fast he's going, or maybe on a replay, but like I don't really care on a random play how fast you're going.
Yeah, I don't know what
like,
they would use that stat for.
I can see that they kept showing how fast the puck was moving, and I'm like, I care how much like how fast that player is going. The guy behind him, and I can see, is he catching him or is he not? Right. But some of the interesting things, they did have kind of this moving triangle, and you could see they had distances of the players from each other, which again, I can see where the players are on the ice, but it is interesting to kind of see that triangle move, especially with 3-on-3. The pentagon of that in 5-on-5 would be a little bit harder to kind of follow that flow, and I don't know how you would map that. But we saw some of this happening, and that was just what they were showing on the broadcast, right? The potential of what you're able to get moving forward with data collection. A lot of people are pretty interested as you're able to track the puck and actually see where it's going, where it's changing, get real data, and give that back to other people outside of the league to do stuff with. That's really the question mark that we have of how much will the average person get as, or even data collection, right? How much of this is going to be publicly available for us to look at, play with, and start to develop more things around the game.
Yeah, I don't know how fast they're going to make it public, but I'm really interested. I would love to know what kind of raw data the teams are getting from this. Apparently they have this set up in Vegas and I guess San Jose, because it requires some hardware installed in the arenas as well. Something like 14 cameras or sensors set up in the rafters. But I'm very curious to know what kind of data the teams are getting from it and what they can, I guess, learn from that data. It's going to be very shallow, I think, what we start to see on the broadcasts, probably because a lot of it, the sports media commentators probably aren't great at deciphering, especially live in such a short amount of time. And it's probably just so much data that it probably wouldn't be easy to visualize live on air.
No, absolutely. And they did say it's within an inch they can detect the puck. So for the purposes of analytics and things like that, an inch is fine. For the purposes of judging an onside, offside, or a goal situation, an inch probably isn't enough. That's a game changer at this point, because when we're doing our reviews, that inch can go a big way.
Yeah, for sure, Ken. But I think this is going to change a lot of ways that teams operate. Like, it's going to be huge when it comes to trades. It's going to be huge when it comes to contract negotiations and arbitration filings. There's going to be a lot more data available for teams to bring to an arbitrator now and show their justification for why they're, offering a lower amount.
For sure. Well, and you can literally go and say, hey, look, like, I am data shown the fastest player on this team in game situations, right?
Yeah.
That you want someone fast, I'm your guy. You want someone who can get the puck out of your zone, right? I'm going to start fast, or I don't need the whole ice to get going, or that puck comes to me and I keep it, right? There's actual data that can show. And again, like you said, it'll be interesting to see how much. I think if they're just handing raw data, but it's still being tracked, it makes tracking way better, way faster. And we've seen independent tracking projects happening all over the place. And we're seeing some teams hiring people to do tracking projects as well. So being able to have that possibility, it makes that easier, even if they're not providing raw data that says this is what it is.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. I'm excited to see where it all kind of leads to, what will be made public, and what the broadcasts are going to be able to do with it once they kind of get a hang of it, which I think next year, all 31 teams are going to have everything installed and ready to go. Yeah,
which I think of the Saddle Dome, for instance, one of the second oldest arena, and I know MSG, as the oldest, has been renovated. I do not want to be the one having to set up in the Saddle Dome.
No.
All that infrastructure.
I don't even know where they'd hang those sensors from on that curved roof.
Yeah, the sensors are going to be a little off, so it'll take some adjusting, some getting used to, but as they get that set up, we'll see. They've said it'll be ready for next year, and I guess SAP, which it makes sense that they're in San Jose. They're the title sponsor of that arena.
Silicon Valley,
the one they're partnering with. Yeah,
big tech area.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Do you want to play a game?
Let's play a game.
As we mentioned, Nick, it is time for a game. We have a special guest with us today, Alex Metzger. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And that's the last nice thing I will say to you, because you are officially my competition.
Yeah, I have no idea what this game is pretty much going in. It was just explained the details to me about 2 minutes ago, so definitely the underdogs here.
The good news is that I am equally as prepared as you. Nick has told me the topic of the game, but that's it.
Honestly, Alex, I think you're better off not knowing.
So, Nick, what are we playing for today?
What are we playing for? Or, like, what's the prize?
I guess no.
Pride?
Pride. Okay, we're playing for Pride. I like that. And how will we win this Pride? I'm hoping to steal Alex's Pride.
I've got an actual prize. I will send the winner a Wings Nation T-shirt.
Oh, there we
How's
go.
that?
Ooh,
I don't know,
there we go.
Alex. What team are you a fan of?
I'd rather not say. It's the Ottawa Senators.
Okay, so you're definitely going to lose this game.
Yeah.
Now that he knows the prize, I mean, does the Avs fan or the Sens fan want a Wings Nation shirt more?
I'd take a Wings Nation shirt.
Yeah, I think one will wear it and one will burn it.
I would find a place for it for sure. My Wings Nation stickers have a special place here.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, well, Alex,
So that's the prize.
awesome. And what's the game?
The game. All right. So this game is called Fehr or Fehr, and I came up with it after last week we talked about the World Series being canceled, or the World Cup of Hockey being canceled. Don't worry, baseball fans, the World Series is not canceled.
That would be we buried the lead. That's what happened there.
You should have seen Carl's face when I said that. No, not the World Series.
We have to call
So
Joel.
after all our discussions about the World Cup of Hockey being canceled, and the CBA is a big topic of discussion in the hockey world today, I thought it would be fun to look at quotes from the heads of both sides of the CBA negotiations. So I looked at quotes from Donald Fehr, and I looked at quotes from Fehr, as did Gary Bettman. And the way the game's going to work is I've got these quotes, and I'm going to read them, and I want you guys to guess who said the quote. Is it Fehr or is it Fehr?
All right, that makes sense. Alex, you good?
Makes sense to me, too. Yep.
All right.
Okay. So you guys ready? Sorry, I should have been ready. Okay. If I'm going to go with the first quote, who's going to answer first? Alex, you're going to answer first?
We'll let Alex. Do you want to go first or second, Alex?
I don't care.
All right, you're going first then.
All right.
Get you started.
Okay. Okay, so here is the first quote. Given our shared interests and the association's evident willingness to compromise, our failure thus far to reach a comprehensive new agreement is both frustrating and disappointing.
Oh. I'm going to say Fehr.
Okay. Carl?
I guess. Well, doesn't it just I would just say Gary, and then I would get it right if he's wrong. I would guess. I would guess that is probably a Gary.
It's a Donald Fehr quote.
Well, there we go.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Alex is.
Yeah, only he would talk about the association's evident willingness to compromise.
Oh, that's true. Dang it. All right, that's all right. Who's keeping score? Is it you?
Oh, yeah. I told you I was going to do that, and then I didn't do it.
All right, I'll keep score here. We got Alex is up 1-0.
I got it. Alex is up 1-0 on Carl. Okay, quote number 2. We ready?
Super.
It takes two sides to make a deal, two sides to negotiate, and two sides to make it go bad. Is that Fehr or Fehr?
That is Fehr. He's putting the blame on the association this time when things go south. So that's a Gary quote.
Okay, Alex.
Can I guess the same thing, or does it have to be different?
No, you can keep the same thing.
If we both get it though, don't I just get the point? Like it's my. Is that how we're doing this?
If you both get it, why would you just get the point?
I don't know. Okay, Alex.
I would also say that's a Gary Bettman quote.
It is a Gary Bettman quote.
It just sounds like something he would say.
So the way I've been scoring it is if you get it right, I'm giving you a tick.
Okay.
So if you both guess the same one, you kind of get it right.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Quote number 3. We don't want our players getting hurt.
Oh. We don't want our players getting hurt. I'll go Fehr.
You go Fehr on that one?
I am going to go Fehr.
It's a Fehr quote.
Dang it.
No, sorry. It's a Fehr quote.
Yes!
That is a Bettman quote. We don't want our players getting hurt.
I think we're all on that same page, Gary. And I assume that's in response to some international hockey there. So,
yeah, probably. I definitely looked at the context for all of these quotes.
Yep.
I did it. Okay, next quote. I don't see a need for increased revenue sharing.
That is old Moneybags Uncle Gary right there.
That's 100% Gary Bettman.
That's Donald.
Really?
Yeah, a little misleading. I realize without the context. I think that quote was probably from before his hockey days when he was doing baseball.
Oh,
so a little misleading.
A deep cut from Nick.
Deep cut. I'm a very fair game host.
A fair game host?
All right, next quote. We believe very strongly that the purpose of penalties to be to deter, not to punish for its own sake.
Is my turn first?
It is you, yeah.
I feel like that's a Fehr quote.
I would think that is a Gary Bettman quote as he's trying to dictate culture in the league.
It's a Donald Fehr quote.
Oh, there you go.
We believe very strongly that the purpose of penalties ought to be to deter.
For real this time.
For real this time. Yes. Okay. Next quote. While players say they like the 5-day break, they're also saying they don't like the compression that goes along with it. And that's something that is of great concern to us as well.
That is a Gare quote. Because he's...
Gare?
That is a Gare quote, yeah.
Okay. Alex?
I'll go the opposite. I'll say that's a Fehr quote.
It's a Bettman quote.
Yeah, it matters to the league. That's why they decided to just shove it with the All Star break so that you don't actually get a second break. Just one big one.
One big break.
So are we tied? That's what I have for
you are tied.
I have 3-3.
Yeah,
all right.
We're all keeping score. Good.
Checks and balances here at the Fourth Line Podcast.
Checks and balances. Okay. Next quote. We believe we've made strides. The process is working, and we're prepared to do a lot more.
I'm trying to think of what these could be from, and I just never have an answer. I'll go that's a Gary quote.
Okay.
The process is working, and
prepared to do a lot more.
We're prepared to do a lot more. Yeah, that seems like a Gary quote.
That's a Donald Fehr quote, guys.
Ooh.
That was a tough one. That could have gone either way.
Yeah.
That's a pretty generic comment after a day of meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I got 3 more. So next quote is, I like this one a lot. If you want how I feel, I'll summarize it in one word. Terrible.
I'm curious when that quote, do you know the time? I can answer it after, but I'm curious when that quote came about. I would say that is a Gary quote. That seems like something he would say right before he locks out the players.
Okay.
I could see that. I'm going to go, it's a Fehr quote, though. We'll go opposite.
It is a Gary Bettman quote.
Oh,
I take the lead.
Yeah, he's Bettman's always had the flair for the dramatics.
Yeah.
Just terrible. Very quotable.
The always terrible Gary Bettman.
The always terrible Gare. All right, next quote. The economics of the industry are good, but my ability to predict what happens in negotiations over the last 25 years has not been good. Want me to read it again?
Sure.
The economics of the industry are good, but my ability to predict what happens in negotiations over the last 25 years has not been good.
That sounds like something you shouldn't be admitting, but...
You shouldn't.
No, you absolutely should not. I'll go Fehr, I guess.
I'm going Gare because he's the only one who's actually been in the negotiations for the last 20 years.
This is a Donald Fehr quote.
Dang it. Blowing my lead.
We're back at a tie.
Is this the last?
And we've got one quote left.
Uh-oh. Great.
Oh, no.
Okay. This is also probably my favorite quote of the bunch. The quote is, I view myself as a deal maker.
Donald Fehr.
Final answer? Final quote?
Final answer.
I feel like you're right, but since someone's got to win, I'll go Gary Bettman.
Gary Bettman, final answer.
Yeah.
It's Gary Bettman.
No!
Yes!
Well,
Gary the deal maker Bettman.
Gary the deal maker.
I just want to know what interview he was in when he said, I see myself as a deal maker.
I've been proving it for the last 25 years that I'm the one prepared to make a deal.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, congratulations. Thank you for coming on. We'll, I guess Nick has a prize for you. We will,
I've got a prize for you, so we'll connect, offline, and you can let me know where to send it to.
The only catch is it has to be the size shirt that Nick is wearing right now. It is you are literally winning the Wings Nation shirt that Nick is wearing.
Off my back.
Hope you can find someone that's the same size as Nick. So
I'll sign it too.
Does it come with an autograph? That's what I want to know.
Autograph unleared.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey Nick, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the elimination station.
Elimination station.
We have put a number of teams in the elimination station. The Ottawa Senators, Los Angeles Kings, Detroit Red Wings, and Chicago Blackhawks, to name a few. Actually, not to name a few, to name all of them. Those are the ones. So we've got a bevy of options coming out of the bye week and the All Star break. We've got about 30 games left in the season, just over. Nick, who are you wanting to eliminate this week?
I want to eliminate the New Jersey Devils.
Why are you thinking? Obviously, Devils not doing well this year. Why do you think that they're in the worst case situation?
Because they have good players who just are not playing good.
That's the same case I have for my. I was gonna go Flyers, and that's the same situation. I feel like they have good players. The only difference, New Jersey, their best player. I feel that the Flyers have more good players who aren't doing well, like Giroux, JVR, Wayne Simmons. Their defense, they've got Carter Hart doing moderately well in goal this year. The Devils, their best player hasn't played in weeks.
Yes. And when he has played, he hasn't been the player of last year.
Right. He's played would you say he's played an Adam Larson level quality this year?
It all comes back to the Oilers.
so that's a no then.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why I feel like the Flyers have more underperformed this year, which I guess that has them in a better situation moving forward, right? If you collectively underperform, maybe that's the situation for the Devils. Let's put the Devils in the elimination station. Welcome, New Jersey, to the elimination station. I've convinced myself.
Yeah, I did nothing.
You didn't. But what would you think moving forward as we're looking into fixing this team? How do the New Jersey Devils return to the playoffs like they were just last year?
Well, they need Taylor Hall, obviously, to be playing at the level that we all know he can play at. But I think it is going to get better for them. I mean, Nico Hischier is going to continue to get better. I have not pulled up their cap friendly yet, so let me do that.
I think my biggest place, obviously Taylor Hall, be better. They need to figure out what they're going to do in net, right? Corey Schneider has not been the player that he once was for quite some time now. I think like the ship has sailed on is Corey Schneider going to be good? Because he's repeatedly shown that he just can't. And whether it's injury or otherwise, he is a struggle.
Yeah, but what do you do about that? I mean, you just have him ride the bench? You're not going to...
What else can you do, right?
You can't trim. Not with that deal.
No, right? Three more years at $6 million. If anyone's going to take him on, it's as a project. And he might as well be a project for you, right? Like if someone's going to try to make it work for him, you might as well try.
Yeah, 100%. The good news for the Devils is that cap-wise, they're in good shape.
Yeah, they're currently the second lowest cap hit, only passed by the Carolina Hurricanes. And so they have lots of that. They got all their picks, so they have a lot of flexibility on what they're going to do. Into next year, they also have a fair amount of guys that are still around, right? There's not many players of the core. Marcus Johansson, really the biggest piece that they will be losing to free agency next year. The rest of them, Brian Boyle, good player, but you can find a Brian Boyle on the market. Same with Drew Stafford. That's fine. And then into the future, a lot of these guys are signed. So the core players that they've built around are part of this team.
Yeah, for sure. And Brian Boyle, I mean, there's a perfect candidate for selling at the trade deadline.
I feel like that is borderline Brian Boyle's nickname. Brian, perfect trade deadline piece Boyle. If he was a host on this show, that would be his nickname.
I'm glad that's not my nickname. But I don't know. Why are NHL general managers so easy to sell on? He's a great character for the room.
Yeah, right?
It's crazy to me, but I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I don't think it's too hopeless for I think this season is very hopeless for the Devils. I think going forward, it's not too hopeless for them. They have a lot of flexibility if they want to get creative and, take a run at some free agents or bring in somebody bigger via trade. I think they've got the flexibility to do that.
Yeah. And as I look at this, having starting goaltending that gives you a save percentage above 900 seems like a good thing. So you get some better goaltending. You have Taylor Hall back, which, I'm not in the medical room there in New Jersey, obviously. But you have to think that if this was a situation where the Devils were in a playoff run, they would be more likely to have Taylor Hall out there. I don't know the exact intenseness of his injury, but that's a situation where you got to think, let's just take this as a loss of a season, get Taylor healthy for next year, and then be back. So.
And he's in a contract year next year.
So should we just engrave his name on the MVP now? Is that what we do?
You can try. You can start that campaign.
That just seems like an inevitability at this point then.
Yeah, it kind of does. But I want to get an extension done with him before next season even starts.
Yeah, that would be, from their perspective, certainly a smart way to go about it.
But at this point, so they're going to finish pretty low in the standings, which means they're going to end up with a high draft, top 10 at least.
Yep.
Where do you draft if you're the Devils? Do you go for defense?
So let's say right now they're second. So let's say they're drafting top 3. If I'm the Devils, I'm just taking best available. I think when you're picking at the top, if you draft based on need, you end up in a terrible situation. So if I'm them and I'm picking at the top, if I drop out of the lottery and I'm picking 6th, I'm probably still going to go best available player. It's not till you get to like the middle bottom where I'm like, okay, fine. All things being equal, if I was the Devils and I were to look for a piece, having brought in, Nico Hischier, Pavel Zacha, not entirely what they had maybe hoped he could become, but still a solid player.
Any young player, he could still be.
Exactly. So with those pieces up front, right? If you do manage to sign Taylor Hall, on bench they've got Sami Vatanen, who's up in 2 years. They'd hope to extend him. Will Butcher, he's done fairly well in his second season coming out of college. I would lean towards defense for me. You've got a fair amount of older players that you're trusting on defense, mainly Andy Green, Ben Lovejoy. For me, I'd be picking defenseman.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do too. Outside of like the top 5 to 8, I think you're right. You always take best player available in that range. But I think overall at the draft, they should probably focus on their back end.
Yeah. And so certainly there's not the slew of fantastic defensemen at the top like there was with the Rasmus Dahlin pick this year. A lot of the top guys, right? I think most people are focusing on Jack Hughes at 1, Capo Caco at 2, and then after that, it opens up a lot, right? So you have some defensemen in that range that you could take no matter where you are.
Yeah, I think the top 6, like 1 and 2 are locks, I think, and then 2 to 6 are like very, very, very good players. Like it's gonna be deep, and then after that, I think it starts to fall off a little bit. I am by no means a prospect expert, though. I can't keep up with all the players.
Well, prospect expert Nick has said it's a weighted top 6 for the draft this year. So we look forward to more analysis as we get closer to the draft. There you go, New Jersey. We've done your work for you. You are welcome, and welcome to the Elimination Station. We crowned a winner in high sticking this week. I did it on the Twitter, actually. I've never done a live Twitter video, and so for those who tuned in and saw that, you're welcome for my live debut. I realized after what I should have done was like tested it on my personal Twitter to work out the bugs and then jumped over. Instead, I just did it one shot. I think I was removing garbage and not garbage, but just like clutter off my desk during the video. It was very, very professional. You're all welcome.
And now everyone knows you run that account.
And then everyone now people know that I was I think most people had a suspicion that I was. I was asked that earlier this week. Do you still run that account? I do. Yeah, most of the time. There's the odd time that Joel's chimed in, and
I've always thought it was Joel on there.
Well, now you know. You've learned something. But we did that, and the winner was me. So congratulations. He has sent us his mailing information, and we're going to be sending him one of our 4th line mini sticks out to him. And I did say that we'd be sending out all the mail this week, and that's still the goal. The Postal Service in Canada seems to be back in shape, and now it's all on me now. It's just my own excuse and laziness for not getting it done, and also just a busy schedule. So
yeah,
I hope to get that done later this week. And until then, you can play high sticking. We will pick our Pat O'Reilly must-watch games. You go to Twitter and pick who will win and what you think the score will be. If you're right, you get 3 points. If you just pick the winner, you get 1. And if you get only one score right and the winner, you get 2 points. There's still a bunch of buys this week, so the schedule pretty light.
It's a very light schedule.
So let's get started. Nick, for Tuesday, games start back up tonight. We have NHL hockey happening. Again, only 2 games. The aforementioned New Jersey Devils in Pittsburgh, and the Flyers and Jets are tonight. But you've likely, even though we're recording before games started, you've likely already watched those games. For Wednesday, where are you going?
You mean Tuesday?
Tuesday. I do mean Tuesday. You are correct. Yes, I do mean Tuesday.
Buffalo Columbus.
Buffalo Columbus. That sounds like a good one to me. Buffalo trying to, let's see if they can fix what was ailing them before the deadline. Buffalo comes out of the All Star game with a back-to-back. They're going into Dallas the next night, but I'm going Tampa and Pittsburgh as the game of the day on Wednesday.
That's the right choice.
Absolutely. Unless you're really, really looking for Jamie Alexiak's re-debut in Dallas after being traded back from Pittsburgh for the exact same thing he was traded for the first time.
No, I was not.
Well, I guess that's your loss.
Yeah, I guess so.
Thursday.
I mean, we could go for the good game, or because we talked up New Jersey so much this episode, we could do a Devils game.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Let's do Rangers Devils.
Rangers Devils. Might as well do it when Joel's not here because he would have definitely fought that one.
Joel would have had nothing to do with Rangers Devils
Yeah.
for sure. Brings us to a big slate of games. Most teams are back on Friday. Detroit's back. They're facing Toronto, which has, Joel's not here, so it's easier for us to avoid the host versus host duel.
Yeah.
However, if I'm looking at this schedule, the one that stands out to me so there's 2 sets of games with top quality teams facing off against each other. Tampa versus the surprising Islanders, or the surprising Flames versus the Capitals.
I was kind of leaning towards Calgary, Washington.
There it is. Calgary, Washington. That is the game of the day for February 1st.
Now, that being said, I'm still going to be watching the Detroit-Toronto game, and I'm assuming Joel is as well. And it's kind of a special game because they are retiring a jersey of a number of a player who played for both teams. So maybe on, what day is this, Friday? Maybe on Friday we can do a bonus point with with a trivia question or something about this player.
Okay. Do we name it now, or is that the trivia question?
No, let me think about what the trivia question. I'm just making this up on the spot.
Okay, so we will have a bonus high sticking point for Detroit and Toronto on Friday as well. Stay tuned for what that is, as we'll give Nick the rest of the week to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm going to need all week for that one.
That's fair. Saturday, another big slate of games.
Whoa.
Yeah, everyone's back for the most part. My Avalanche heading into Vancouver's heading into town. When I look at the actual schedule, so we have had Pittsburgh already this week, but Pittsburgh, Toronto, Sidney Crosby on Hockey Night in Canada, that they're excited for that game. That's really the only good versus good of top matchups. The other one is Dallas and Nashville, a fringe playoff team heading in Nashville. What are your thoughts?
I think Pittsburgh-Toronto is going to be a much better game.
Pittsburgh-Toronto is the must-watch game on Saturday night, which brings us to the Sunday game. And my thoughts there, Calgary and Carolina. That'll be the first time the Hurricanes headed into Calgary right before the break, and now the Canes that moved there, Bill Peters, that'll be their first game in Carolina since the trades and coach swap. That's my thoughts for Sunday.
I like it.
All right, so there you go. We've got a couple repeats. We got some Pittsburgh twice. We got some Calgary twice. But hey, when you win games, people pay attention. People want to watch that. Those are our must-watch games of the week. Thank you very much to Alex for joining us this week. It was a lot of fun playing that game with you. And stay tuned. Maybe we'll do this a little bit more in the future. So stay tuned to our Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, where we'll put that out there. You can find us. We're part of the Alberta Podcast Network. If you head to albertapodcastnetwork.com, you will find some would say a bevy of things that you could do there. Have I used that word on the show already today?
I don't know, but I generally only listen to you 50% of the time, so.
That's fair. You're not the only one. But if you go there, you will find you will find a fantastic collection of things. You'll find information on the main page of the different types of shows happening and sponsorship as well. Ones that are near and dear to my heart are the education podcast. As an educator myself, I find it very important to continue to learn and find things out. And so if you head there, you will find 4 fantastic shows in the education and self-improvement section. One is the Ed podcast. So that's conversation with teachers about education. If you head over there, you will find out much more about what's happening with the Ed podcast with host Shane Lawrence. So tune in to that. That is a fantastic show that I myself listen to quite a lot. You can also find us at thefourthlinepodcast.com. We did a series this week on the all-time All-Stars. So the greatest All-Star for each team. We didn't do each team. That would have been a length, and you probably would have skipped a bunch of it. So we cherry-picked some teams. Nick, if you were to pick the greatest Detroit Red Wing of all time, we looked at one in the article, but who would you pick as the all-time All-Star for the Detroit Red Wings?
Gordie Howe.
That is the correct answer, sir. That's a good continuation from our trivia game earlier. So you have gotten the right answer. So you win this contest of 1. But it is interesting to look back and think, like, yeah, it should be Gordie Howe, but looking at a team like Detroit with such a long legacy, for some of those teams, it was not an easy choice.
I can't imagine.
So it was a fun thing. Head on over there for more great writing work. Find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast, Facebook.com/The Fourth Line Podcast, and mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com if you want to send us anything, your congratulations, your thanks, your complaints, just general thoughts you have on the show. Send it on over there. We love to hear from you. Thank you to Nick.
See you next week. Snow City.